welcome to our next session. We're going to be talking with Philippe here about what agency audits reveal about the infrastructure programmatic CTV was built on. But we're actually going to talk about way more than that because there's a hell of a lot of news that's been affecting the CTV space. Philippe, you're CEO of Tatari and founder, right?
That's right, yeah.
Yes, so CEO and founder of Tatari. Actually, I'm going to let you just introduce yourself and talk a little bit about what Tatari does, just so people can kind of be oriented.
Yeah, for sure. And I brought you water.
Oh, thank you.
Tatari branded. Cheers.
Double fisting.
I thought that was your hack for the week. Take water with you.
I feel like that should be that's just a hack for life. It's just
Yes,
just stay hydrated.
True that. But yes. Well, thanks for having me. Let's see. So Tatari, we, in a single sentence, we are technology for TV advertising. What that means is predominantly brands, but also agencies use us to plan, buy, and measure their TV campaigns across both linear and streaming TV.
Great.
And so we've been around for close to 10 years, privately held, profitable, 300 people, very much a US company.
So I always like talking to you because you always have a point of view and a sort of a spicier point of view. And there's been a lot that's been happening in the CTV space and in the agency space. Well, let's talk about agency audits because honestly, without an agency audit, do we have a story? No. So Trade Desk and Publicis, they kind of announced some sort of weird deal, the details of which are not very clear. What do you think actually happened, and what does that opacity around the announcement of the deal tell us?
I mean, obviously, I only know what happened, what I read in Adweek, right? And but look, clearly there's always been a kind of a general issue around programmatic TV and the way in which that runs, and how foundational kind of it leads to things like a lack of transparency, opacity, and things like that, or fees and left, fees to the right, and fees on fees, and I think it hit a wall at some point. Maybe in a strange way, the Trade Desk was vilified and all of that because they were picked out amongst kind of all the players in the industry. I guess that's what happened, and it's also not surprising that it gets reconciled now, and so onwards, right?
Well, do you think it was reconciled?
I don't know. I think the fix isn't that difficult, right? Because really, what I read is that the holdcos are, don't understand what happens behind the machine and why there's so many fees and why there's data losses, and so yeah, I think it's fixable. So.
I mean, Publicis has Epsilon, so they must have some idea that what's going on behind the scenes.
True. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's not, and the reason I'm kind of vague on this because it's not something that matters to us. We just at Tatari we just operate fundamentally very differently, and it's not an issue we've had to deal with. At a high level, we lead with direct media execution. Right, where we bypass the programmatic pipes and we don't have to deal with those issues. So it's something I wouldn't say we've been immune to, but it's just not been part of our day-to-day.
Well, let's talk about another big CTV deal, which is Fox's intent to buy Roku for, I think, $22 billion. How does that affect Tatari, but also how does that affect the rest of the CTV environment? Because Fox suddenly has scale and they've got hardware.
Yeah, I mean, so, of course, it depends a little bit what Fox will do with Roku. We don't know that yet. But if there's no fundamental changes, like becoming another walled garden or anything like that, I actually don't project much impact of that to the industry, whether it's us or the brands that we work with. I think it's a great deal for Fox. I think there's a lot of companies who could have or maybe should have bought Roku and own the distribution, not just the content. But for now, it's business as usual.
I mean, do you think Fox isn't going to become a walled garden? I feel like that's the opportunity, and everyone wants to be a walled garden to survive.
I doubt it. I think the way in which we, for example, work together with Fox or many of the other major publishers is that we have data sharing and data transparency. And it helps bring about a measurement and a cross-publisher measurement, allows for better planning, better media execution, and so it generally helps their business. And so I think it would be difficult for them to step away or walk away from that.
Also kind of curious your thoughts about like hardware and to what extent is it important to own both the content and the hardware? Thinking Walmart buying Vizio, Amazon also has Fire TV. Obviously, Fox now probably has the biggest footprint, or will have the biggest footprint, assuming that deal closes in America once with Roku. Why is the hardware important, or is it?
I mean, it's like owning the operating system, right? It's a platform in which you operate. It's kind of funny how we come full circle because 20 years ago, I don't know, Comcast owned the hardware or the operating system and the user experience, and I guess that got diluted or that wasn't good enough anymore, and they're literally gotten their lunch eaten, and then we're coming back to that. I've been a Roku user my whole life, and it's a great experience, and so. As a content distributor, obviously it gives you a privileged position to be to meet your viewers, right, with your own content or third-party content. So I think it's a really good move from Fox.
Is there a risk though that you mentioned Comcast? They had the hardware, got diluted. This time around, now we've got all these new sort of hardware sort of acquisitions. What's going to keep those acquisitions from being diluted?
That's a great question. I mean, like, ultimately, it's nothing, right? Because over longer cycles, everybody gets displaced. Just pay attention to Google. Google is potentially at risk of getting displaced by AI search unless Gemini does well. So nobody is immune, but we're talking long cycles here.
Let's talk about programmatic CTV. Because there's this thought, I think, that when you buy programmatic CTV, you're buying real TV. Are you?
It is real TV. The question is how much. So the truth is that true TV, premium TV, especially the tentpole programming, the big sports events, that doesn't live that doesn't sit in the programmatic pipes. The content owners are going to, sell that directly, and that's not a bad thing, because if you're a brand and you want to tap into the beauty of TV, which is reach, then you want to do that direct buy, and you want to buy all those viewers, those 20 or 30 million people who watch the NBA Finals in one fell swoop. That's a much better deal than cherry picking single impressions, even if they're targeted via DSP. And so, for a brand, buying TV or premium TV via DSP isn't really there. There's very little available. We can put some numbers behind it. The TV market in the US is $90 billion. About $15 billion of that lives in programmatic biddable. So that's now 15 or 20% at the most. But even that 15, that's not all premium, maybe only half of it. When a brand decides to follow a strategy of buying TV programmatically only, they're literally executing on 10% of what they could or should be doing.
So I guess how should we, if I'm a buyer, how should I be thinking about programmatic TV today? Where does that fit into my overall media plan? Is it just sort of like, my long tail inventory? Is that really where it sits? And then how should I be thinking about it? How do you think we'll be thinking about it maybe a year to 3 years from now?
Yeah, today the way to think about it is like, hey, look, if I'm a brand, there is a place for programmatic, especially when it comes to like deep targeting, retargeting in particular, right? Or building lookalike models. There's a place for that. But always remember, in that scenario, you're finding very unique viewers or potential buyers of your product. The real strength of TV is introducing your brand to people who've never heard about it, and you actually compel them to, to consider you and then potentially buy you. And so you got to find new reach. And so targeting is a blessing and a curse in that scenario. Yeah.
Does targeting in CTV work? Like, are you going to hit the audience that you think you're going to hit?
it does work. You're going to, if you follow a very particular targeting strategy, again, retargeting the best one, absolutely. The conversion rates on retargeting are maybe double or triple of what they are in general prospecting campaigns. But there's only that many people you can retarget, right? Or if you try to target all 54-year-old males living in San Francisco, I don't know, driving a Tesla, there's not that many people you're going to find.
Not everybody. That's everybody.
Maybe.
I want to. How about like agentic infrastructure? To what extent is that going to change things? Because over the past 2 weeks, Disney, NBCU, Fox have all come out really aggressively saying, hey, we have this agentic orchestration layer allowing other agents to kind of hook into ours. Obviously, it's very nascent. I don't think there's like a lot of execution yet, but it is definitely a big flag in the ground across all of these major broadcasters, all of these major ad buyers. What does that change when it comes to the purchasing of not just CTV inventory, but maybe all TV inventory?
Well, we'll find out soon how much it will change. I think just everybody got their message out right before Cannes, right? There's so much. I mean, I just wrote about this actually publicly. There's so much talk about agentic AI, and we talked about contrarian. As this is something I just don't believe in, right? Agentic AI. I think the way I put it was that there's really the emphasis on the A for automated, very little emphasis on the I for intelligence, meaning it's processes that were or are still today done manually are getting automated, almost in a scenario of if this, then that. There isn't a necessary deployment of data and large language models to understand that data to then transact on. Right, so it's ultimately just workflow automation. That's the way I see it, without much intelligence. So is that going to change? What do you ask? You asked me, is that going to change?
Is it going to change TV buying or CTV buying?
Not right now, right? So I think the question I often hear is it going to change programmatic? No, not really, because the foundational issues underlying programmatic were, we try to apply digital principles to a very concentrated supply and market. All the issues around it of fees and transparency and potential fraud or brand safety, they remain. So I don't think how agentic AI is going to change that.
Do you think it's all bullshit?
Those are two. That's a heavy word, but I'm skeptical, cynical. That's all.
Okay. So I'm still forming my thoughts around this, and I feel that it's not gonna be a big shift this year or next year, but I do think there are so many companies diving into this and a lot of like push to invest in standards and to try to figure out how the infrastructure is gonna work, that I feel like it is eventually gonna be a shift in how things are done and who's executing the purchases.
Yeah, it will help, right? I mean, look, in the world of advertising and TV advertising, there's still a lot of manual processes. It is absurd, especially when it comes to direct media execution, where we've brought about a lot of change. So it's all good. I think my cynicism stems more from it kind of like AI washing it. It has nothing to do with AI, in my opinion. It's just workflow automation. Right? So the way we look at AI, as an example, is, okay, well, take Tatari. We've been in market for 10 years. We've run campaigns across hundreds of brands, billions of dollars. We've always found the feedback loop between an impression and a conversion. So we have all that data. How can we use that data smartly so that we can plan better and faster, but potentially also execute campaigns faster, right? That is true AI. So I'll give you an example. As little as 5 years ago, when we had to plan a media campaign, a buyer, whether it's us or the brand, they would go on a website and they would build a campaign. You click this, you select that, and stuff like that. In the end, Ryan, if possible, they would have to select from about 40,000 linear network rotation entities and tens of thousands of streaming entities. No human buyer can do this. Today, with our data sets and large language models, they can actually go through all of this and do that work much better, faster, error-free, by the way, with better performance than a human buyer can. That's deployment of true AI. But agents don't matter in all of that.
Well, wait, why not? Because the agents are the ones that are powered by the AI. They're the ones that ostensibly, would be powered by the judgment, by the, company's rule book, and, would be just simply be executing on behalf based off of what that judgment says.
The agents set up the campaigns and make changes as needed, what otherwise a human being would do. That's all. They don't get involved in the intelligence decision in terms of what should I buy, in what quantities, and what should my pricing be, and all that kind of stuff.
So 1 year from now, how does the automated TV buying landscape look like? What is different and what is exactly the same?
See, that's the part where I'm cynical and I don't know. Let me give you a counterexample. So, and this is, if I can talk a little bit about Tatari here then. We've always favored direct media execution, right? Because ultimately 90% of all streaming TV impressions come from the same top 10 publishers. So if that's the case, why is the industry using these kind of like digital principles and technology like programmatic to connect buyers with sellers? If there's only 10 connections to make, we may as well just do them directly, right? That's the product that we announced a few months ago, Upstream, where all that those 10 connections, they're done, right? And so I think the realization, and that's a good thing, right? Because now for the first time, brands can, even in small doses, tap into that premium inventory, which I said earlier, is not available in the programmatic pipes. See, so that's a better solution, and I like to think that is where the industry is going. In many ways, other companies are taking pages out of our book now. The Trade Desk would announce OpenPath. Ultimately, it's a different technical implementation. It's still programmatic, but it underlines or it supports the thesis around which we've executed forever. It's kind of like building those direct pipes.
Actually, I'm kind of glad you brought that up because there is this thought that the era of agentic will completely disintermediate all of the, kind of the ad tech players that are in the middle, the DSPs, the SSPs, anyone who's kind of like, helping facilitate the flow of inventory, because with Agentic you can just connect directly. Yay or nay?
Can I go maybe? No,
Oh,
but
right.
I mean, look, ultimately, what's the issue with direct buys today? The IOs, right? Is that they are so manual. Literally, there's no better English. People will send an Excel spreadsheet or a PDF of what they want to buy. That is very manual. And is there a chance for agents to change that? Yes. What's a better mousetrap? Is that you automate the manual process that we already have today directly at the ad server level. That is upstream. And I think that is a better answer.
So does that mean like the DSPs, SSPs are gone, or does that mean they still have?
They'll evolve. That's it. Ultimately, DSPs and SSPs are the two different sides of the same coin, and we'll definitely see them coming together. The stanza, and that's good actually. I think that's normal. It's just that there is a risk that it all remains the same programmatic technology that comes from digital with its issues around fraud, safety, opacity, and that kind of stuff. So where it's going to go, we don't know. And then, we're not a prediction of the future. We just know that what we've built works incredibly well. We've got incredible traction with it. Half of our streaming demand is now executed through the platform, through the upstream technology. Publishers love it. And so I like to think that's the future, at least for us and our brands.
Talk a little bit about the supply side, because we kind of alluded before about how 90% of CTV impressions come from 10 publishers.
Yeah.
And it feels like everyone is just aggregating more and more scale, more and more content. And I know we talk about, we can kind of, really target, with some of the CTV ad tech players can really target specific individuals, but it feels like the more these suppliers aggregate, and a lot of these suppliers have very good ad tech themselves, the more that they're going to be able to provide, even, all of the value that some of the smaller ad tech players can bring in terms of targeting specific audience sects, it seems like the biggest players are soon going to be able to do exactly that.
You have to be really big to be able to do this, or have the kind of the financial means. And so ultimately, there's 3 players in that bucket today. It's Amazon, and I think Amazon has what, 3% of viewership. It's Netflix, 10% of viewership, and then YouTube, which is another 10%. So thankfully for the industry, speaking for everybody, not just Tatari now, that leaves 75%. That's still pretty good. I think it'd be hard for anybody in the 75% to build that walled garden now. It would cost a lot of money to set it up.
But isn't it just a case of the ones who already have the walled gardens just making their walled gardens bigger and bigger?
Yes, and how far can they push it? I don't see it going beyond, say, like 40%. I would find it difficult.
When you kind of think about the next 5 years, what is the biggest thing that concerns you when it comes to CTV and TV? And then what is the biggest thing that what are you most excited about?
I'll start with the latter. It's AI, and I kind of gave an example earlier around how AI has truly not just automated but made planning for TV today. That's a reality we're there. The piece that excites me even more now, and we have rolled this out at Tatari under upstream, is the use of AI in media execution. Again, let's go back to programmatic. How does programmatic work? DSPs pick up impressions at the SSP level, and they do so running auctions. They run a lot of auctions concurrently. It's called QPS, queries per second, 300,000 auctions a second. That's very inefficient. It's actually, from a computational cost very high. There is a better way. The way we do it today is when, through upstream, we buy a swath of impressions, potentially even run off-site, completely blind, without much meaning to it. And rather than running price auctions, we use that data set that we have, and we try to optimize with large language model which bid request is most fitting for which brands. It's almost like a re-triaging at the last split second. So we don't have to run expensive auctions, but we do get the same campaign performance or better out of it than you would from a DSP. I mean, that is incredibly exciting for us. So we have this going at a high level for about 30% of our campaigns now, leading to a roughly on average, 20% campaign performance improvement. And that's just running AI on media execution. I don't think anybody does this yet. This is the piece that excites us the most. You also asked about the headwinds. Do I really?
What is the piece that most concerns you?
I think competition is interesting. It's a blessing and a curse. We have a lot of competition in our industry, and a lot of competition, which is sometimes questionable, and so that is always a source of concern. On the other hand, I do like competition because it keeps us sharp, and it gets the best out of it. But that's always on my mind.
Right, and if you want to get a sense of how Tatari is facing off the competition, you have that big billboard on the Palais.
With humor, absolutely. Yeah. But really underlying and emphasizing what it is that we do. That billboard was not about picking on a particular DSP. As a matter, I even forgot which.
You have 5 DSPs.
5, exactly. So go big or go home. This was again about our message. It's kind of like, true premium TV cannot be found via DSP technology or programmatic in general, right? You gotta buy direct. Happy to be out there with it.
All right, Philip, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.